Agencyclick presents Everything Film with Film Robot, broadcasting from Jaeger's Sports Bar on West Broadway by McDonald. Joe Leary along with Patrick Scheltgen from Film Robot. And we're joined by young actor Dylan Kingwell and his mom, Jennifer Kingwell. Welcome to our program. Nice to have you guys down.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Before we get to you, young sir, I want to ask the mom, what age did you think that maybe there was some little glimmer of potential in your kid that you wanted to get him in the industry?
He was about 3. And he was always very personable. I used to take him to Starbucks for coffee and stuff, and he would leave me at my table by myself, and he would work the room and just chat.
This is pre-COVID, obviously, back in the days when you could leave your table.
It was about 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, you know, he's personable, he's confident, he gets along well with adults, and I have, like many parents, I heard the story, if your kid wants to be a star, you know, bring him down to this casting call. So we, like many parents, did that. And I won't, get into it too much, but basically he was the cutest little thing, 3 years old, and it was a room of 200 people, and they asked a question, and he put up his little hand, and they called him up to the front. And, of course, the oohs and the ahs, and you're so cute. And that all kind of ended up seeing us into a room, and I learned that it wasn't a casting call. It was actually a company sort of wanting you to take lessons and this and that. So they said that we think that your son's going to be a star, so we want to put him on this accelerated training program.
for $9,000 or something
and
like that.
I was just like, this isn't for us. But after that, it was a learning lesson, and we started the proper process of going through, looking up agencies that represent kids and going through the Better Business Bureau to see which ones would be a good fit, and we did some go-sees, and we picked his agent, and it's the same one that he has today.
Yeah.
And were you charmed right from the start, Dylan? Was this something that you were down with, going, yeah, let's do it?
I mean, I can't really remember because it was sort of like before you make memories, I guess. But I know that it's from my earliest memory I loved it, so I assume that it's kind of the age where your parents said, hey, do you want to do this? And you're just like, yeah, sure, why not? I guess I didn't have a full scope of what I was actually doing. But then once I, figured it out, I've loved it ever since. So
that's fantastic. I wanted to talk to you guys more about kind of directing the show in a bit of a different direction, about the whole preparation and when things start happening fast for you guys and you're moving into the situation and I got to give, and your mom's probably been sitting in many audition rooms waiting, and it's like a tryout all the time. Maybe like a professional hockey tryout every day, and then did you do good? I can imagine the conversation's pretty much the same in the car.
Yeah.
It's it's also the same, like, because with hockey, there's different levels of it. So obviously, I come out of a regular winter hockey tryout a little less stressed than I would for like if I was playing on a competitive spring team. And it's the same thing with acting. Obviously, like every role to me is great and I love to work on whatever, but if it's a lead role in a feature film, I'm a little more angsty beforehand than if it's just if it's a guest star part or whatever.
Well, for those who don't know, I just want to interrupt a bit because you know what, the Kingwells are a hockey family. These guys know their Canucks inside and out, World Juniors. We spent time. People don't know that Dylan was a very competitive hockey player, and you know what? One of the saddest days of my life is when your mom said, "Dylan might not be able to play AAA hockey because he might get injured."
Yeah, that's
maybe you could tell a little bit about that, because I remember I was looking at your mom and going, "Wow, that's like
Yeah, he signed a contract for 3 seasons with the show, and there's a clause in there, and
the show.
A series of unfortunate events, where he played twins on that show. And so it's part of it. It's part of the process. When you commit, and first of all, the production company commits to you as the talent, it's something that you need to then commit back to them because they're investing time and money, and the role is important, and it's always, first and foremost, this is a job. It's professional. You need to respect whatever is outlined in the contract.
Yeah.
And then going back to like our days of auditions, I mean, for every 10 no's you get, it's the one yes. And we would have numerous drives into Vancouver for auditions back and forth. And, I'd always ask him when he would come out, well, how'd it go? And there were some days where he was like, you know what, great. There were some days where he had feedback and he said, this is what we did. And then there were other days where he's like, yeah, I just don't think that was for me.
Yeah.
And then shocking, that might be the one that he ended up booking.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry to interrupt, but as an example, The Good Doctor is one of my more popular roles, and I've felt better walking out of audition rooms than I did out of The Good. I mean, I don't think I did bad, but there's been roles that I haven't booked where I came out, I was like, oh, I'm sure I'm getting a call.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how that
My
works.
brief foray into acting, it lasted all of one commercial. And I just remember everybody is basically saying, great job, we'll be in touch. And you walk out of there thinking, I nailed it.
Yeah.
And then you don't hear back. And I just thought, I would rather you be honest and just say to me, Joe, you sucked. You're not getting it. Go home. Have a nice day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can't do that, obviously.
No.
They can't be. But it's really nice when you get, genuine good feedback. Mm-hmm. No feedback can be good and it can be bad. Because, you get good feedback when they're sure, and then you get no feedback if they're, on the fence or whatever. You can't.
Well, even just getting the audition, just getting the call to go to the audition, that in itself, the casting director has a list that they select from of who they're going to call in. The agent will submit, but the casting director can say yes or no. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, even just getting a call back in itself is a win.
Sure.
It's feedback. It's positive. So, yeah, it's quite a process. And for our family, I'm lucky in that for the majority of my career, I've worked from home. So I've had a flexible schedule because it takes a village to raise an actor, as it does with sports and as we all know. But I definitely would say, for Dylan, in his case, 3 of his 4 grandparents have been on set with him. Mm-hmm. My husband and I would swap in midday when he's working.
So I'm curious about that, because what are the rules and regulations when it comes to at what age do you not have to have a guardian with you?
So I can't give a cert. I know it used to be 16.
I think it's 18 now.
But now it is 18. So basically, 3 years ago, if I was this age, Mom wouldn't have had to stay on set with me. She would obviously have to drive me there. It's 18 now. I don't know why they moved it up, but that's how it is.
And are there, from a parental point of view, were there any concerns about your child embarking down a road where he's going to be required to do things or say things or act out in certain ways? Was there any concern? Because we had Chance Hirschfield on the show, and he was saying it was kind of fun because, if he played a role that required him to say dialogue that normally he wouldn't be allowed to say at home, it's a job, Mom and Dad, and they were cool with it. Were there any concerns on your part?
You know what? There wasn't never any concerns, and the production company, executive producers, they're great. If there's a scene, for example, in The 100, where he was basically lying under a pile of dead bodies, and watch them in this scene all shot. So what they do in advance to that, something like a situation, is they'll call the parent and they'll say, this is what the scene's going to look like. How do you feel? How do you think emotionally he will handle that? And do you want someone on site for him that day to walk him through anything that might be difficult? So I mean, Dylan is bright and outgoing, and I never really worried, and he's also really in tune with his own emotions. So if there was something that made him uncomfortable, I think he would have come to me or whoever was with him that day. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously a concern, but especially in our community, in the Vancouver film production, there's some amazing people. They do their jobs well. They follow the union laws.
And that's why they're where they are, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
And also, if I may, there's a fine line to walk there, because sometimes it's that uncomfortable, really jarring stuff that helps me produce the best performance. Because there's it's hard to get in the mindset of someone who's just watched his whole family and friends get shot. It's obviously not something that I can relate to, thank God. And so it's one of those things where, I'm not gonna lie, it did affect me emotionally to see that. I'm lying, they put blood all over me, and I've got people lying on top of me, and that can mess you up. But at the same time, I think I've learned how to use that to my advantage, because it helps me, because the more realistic it is, the easier that it is to.
I'm always amazed that the next episode, everybody kind of just gets over it. And,
Yeah.
Like 3 of my friends were dead, and but let's just
Moving on.
Keep moving on.
Yeah.
Our guest is Dylan Kingwell, and his mom is Jennifer Kingwell. This is Everything Film with Film Robot, presented by Agencyclick, broadcasting from Jaegers on West Broadway at McDonald. So you've got a pretty good-looking resume for a kid that's only 16, and you're obviously building credits as you go further. Do you have your vision focused on the future? What ideally what do you want to do? Do you want to do a sitcom? Do you want to be a heartthrob? What is the thing that you would like to sort of focus on?
I really have, ever since I did The Returned, which was the first sort of recurring series regular role that I did in a show, I've just, a long-running TV show or a feature film, that type of stuff. But I really like, deep stuff. Like The 100 and The Good Doctor have probably been my best opportunities to explore some really sort of emotional performances. And I live for that stuff. Like it's my favorite to do. And so I would love to sort of follow a career path. Leonardo DiCaprio is an example I use a lot, because he sort of does these, all of his roles, or the majority at least, are, they're based on a true story, or they're really quirky, weird, interesting characters, Wolf of Wall Street, based on a true story, and Titanic, and all that stuff. But they're all really dramatic and really deep in some way. And those are the type of stuff that I love, because it really challenges my ability, and I love to do something where it's hard to do, because I feel it's more rewarding when it does work out in the end.
How has COVID-19 affected the industry?
Oh, where do I even begin? Well, so I was actually filming The 100 Season 7, and the last day of shooting, the last ever day on that show after 7 seasons, was March 14th, 2020. And they did not plan that, but March 15th, everything got shut down. Nothing opened up the next week. 2 days later, nothing. And so there was basically just a huge hiatus from that day forth until I began auditioning again in August. And then I was very fortunate to get on set on my most recent project in December. And I do have some upcoming work in the next month as well. So in short, there was a long hiatus, but things are slowly but surely coming back, which is
and obviously protocols are fully maintained. And I guess, was there any concern, Jennifer, on your part of, because again, we're all freaked out over how this thing has transformed in our lives, and we don't know when it's going to get back to 100% normal. But are you satisfied that the industry is doing everything they can to keep people safe?
Absolutely, especially with the recent project that we can't let you know what it is that he's in, but obviously it was our first experience with COVID and the protocol, so we were going for frequent COVID testing every 48 hours. That felt safe. They had a registered nurse there doing the testing, sanitization. When we were on set filming, they have the COVID safety people walking around, making everybody keep their distance. So it's a strange and odd and unfamiliar situation, but yeah, absolutely we felt safe. There was a couple of times where the COVID safety officers asked us to split up. I'm like, well, I'm mom. So, and they're like, well, for perception, maybe you should keep your 6 feet. So we did, right? It's safe. It is safe. And that's why it's still going. When they were able to resume filming, they're doing the correct things, and that's why they're still going. Hopefully it stays that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how you prepare, some of the stuff that's going on. And it's something that's a question to both of you guys. First question I want to ask is, how many times, if you're doing sides, you've obviously, you're right in there, I'm sure. How many times have you been the good doctor?
Oh, well, I am, for anything we tape at home, I am the reader.
Yeah.
I am the camera girl.
That's great.
I am the sound quality, and I am the producer, because I then take the SD card and throw it into my computer and create the video clips.
So there's a lot of work that you guys do when you're not on set to prepare
and
for
I
this.
don't get paid for this.
I know.
I know, right?
Well,
your son does.
When you're
day.
older and I buy
day.
you something nice, then you'll get paid.
So, so elaborating on that, I want to go a little bit deeper with you, Dylan, and you go into this situation. So when you're on set, and I've always been curious about this, do you know it are you so prepared? Have you memorized those lines to the point where, like, you know, or is it like, oh, I forgot, I could try again. Oh, I forgot, let's try again.
I think it's one of those things where no matter how much you prepare, you know, almost everyone messes up once or twice. You know, the greatest actors I've ever worked with, Freddie Highmore, Neil Patrick Harris, you know, Patrick Warburton, everyone messes up their lines once or twice. But I definitely try my best. And but it's you know, we're only human and things happen. And, you know, it can be anything from sometimes I'll hear something funny from 30 feet away and that'll just throw me off. Like, it's
then they
really
go cut
hard.
and then do it again. And, you know.
It's hard to be 100% perfect, but I definitely try my best because I have such a passion for it. So I want to.
So behind the scenes, when you're on set, and I mean, when you're working, what actor do you think has given you the most? Like, he's behind the scenes and being animated and helping you to get that response. Like, who's the real pro?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I mean, the actors that I've worked with that I've had the most personal conversation with that are adults would probably be Freddie Highmore from The Good Doctor. Actually, all of the older doctors, they're like Hill Harper. I think probably Freddie, I think is who I've talked to most. Freddie or Patrick Warburton, who are obviously two incredibly talented
and
actors.
they want to get the best performance out of you because it benefits them, right?
Yeah.
So, you know.
It's a whole, you know.
To elevate you, right?
Everyone doing their best makes everyone else do better. And I've just been fortunate enough that these awesome people have been willing to, you know, help me out and talk to me and stuff.
That's fantastic.
You know, I find it's interesting because in one of my other lives, I did a fair bit of travel when travel was possible. And you'll talk to people and think, oh, it must be nice to be able to stay in hotel rooms. Yeah, it is for a bit, and then all of a sudden it gets really boring. You miss your own things. I miss driving my car. I miss going to a local coffee shop. And I've been on enough sets over my life that the end product looks great, and people are fantasizing about wanting to be there. There's a lot of sitting around and waiting. But I will say this, food's generally pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I've been really lucky personally that I haven't filmed anything major outside of Vancouver. I've traveled more for auditions, actually, like for a series of unfortunate events, filmed right here in Vancouver, but I went to LA for the audition. I filmed a commercial in Regina once when I was like 9 or something like that. Yeah. But no, I've been really fortunate. I haven't had to experience that much. I've experienced it little enough that any time that I have done it, I've never complained because it's felt like a real
exciting
privilege.
for him.
Yeah, like
you know,
New York for the premiere of a series of unfortunate events.
When they built the new Portman Bridge, that was the best day for an acting mom because literally all the auditions were down in Vancouver. We live out in Surrey. So it would take us an hour and a half to 2 hours sometimes because of that bridge. So, you know, it's a lot of driving. You're right. It's a lot of waiting. And then even after you leave the audition, you get put on hold and then you're waiting, waiting.
Well, I know you've been a recurring character in a few shows. And I mean, the two that I want to go is obviously The Good Doctor, which, you know, I'm a big fan of. Great show. And then the series of unfortunate events. Yeah. So, and then I guess The Returned is another one that was, like, every time I talk about that, your eyes light up. So it's something that you really liked, I imagine, was your first thing. Yeah. But for our listeners out there, and what I would like to ask you is, like, the differences. It's like what is one harder than the other? One more sci-fi, more setup, more technical? Like, what's your experience been?
That's a great question. Well, on the technical side, a series of unfortunate events definitely had these crazy elaborate sets, you know, houses on rotating platforms that they would spin around to simulate a hurricane, you know, like like a sea storm, you know, the green screen. So in terms of technical, I bet you that the crew on a series of unfortunate events had a lot more unique tasks than on The Good Doctor.
Yeah.
In terms of me acting, that's tough to say. I mean, you know, a series of unfortunate events, there's a lot of really unorthodox situations, you know, kids at a prep school getting kidnapped in a car and all this stuff. So in that respect, it can sometimes be hard to get into character because, you know, it's so whimsical. You really have to try. But then with The Good Doctor, though, the acting was, in my opinion, more emotional for the most part, more real, and so that can also present a challenge. I would say overall, I found The Good Doctor to be harder to act in, or harder to be happy with my product, because I felt like I was expecting more of myself since it was a more emotional thing. But then definitely on the production side, probably A Series of Unfortunate Events was a little more elaborate.
Dylan Kingwell, how do people find you on social media?
Dylan.Kingwell on Instagram, and that's my main one. I don't really use Twitter, but Dylan Kingwell on Twitter.
And one final question. If we put this show in a time capsule and dig it up 5 years from now, where are you 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I am probably in university somewhere. Hopefully, my dream schools are University of Toronto, or maybe one of the big ones in the States like Berkeley or something like that. Or I've booked a big role in the summer and I'm not doing university anymore and I'm working on a set.
Well, you're a nice guy. Thanks for joining us. And Jennifer, thanks for bringing them down.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you. Continued success. Cheers.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for having us.